Welcome to Zaatar and Zaytoun. So today we're going to make Fatteh. It's traditionally made with fried bread that's topped with a yogurt chickpea sauce. And then you sprinkle over some pine nuts and some brown butter at the end. It's perhaps one of the most delicious things you can have at breakfast time. The trick to making the best Fatteh is to prepare all of your elements first. I start with the bread. I'm using Lebanese flatbread, which is slightly thinner than your traditional pita bread that you might find in the supermarket. And you can find these in your local Middle Eastern grocery stores. Traditionally, Fatteh was a way of using up leftover stale bread, so the bread doesn't have to be fresh at all. Here I'm just tearing up the bread into kind of small bite-sized chunks. I'm going to deep fry them in some vegetable oil. Make sure the oil is quite hot, and you can test this by adding a little piece, and if it sizzles and floats to the surface, then it's hot enough. The flatbreads darken really quickly, so make sure you don't leave them in too long. Drain them on a plate lined with paper towels and set aside. So that's your first element done. Now I'm going to heat up a can of chickpeas. I'm going to save the chickpea water as I'll need some of that to loosen the sauce later on. Next you'll need a clove of garlic, and here I've added about a teaspoon of salt. You can use a pestle or mortar to pound the garlic really well, but here I'm just using a fork. You just don't want to get large pieces of garlic in the sauce. I then add about 3 cups of plain or Greek yogurt. It doesn't really matter which one, right, as long as it's not flavored. Then I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of tahini. You don't want to add too much tahini because it will be really heavy. So always add less and then adjust it if you have to later. Roughly drain the chickpeas into the yogurt tahini sauce, and it's okay if you take some of the water, but not too much. Let's give it a stir to see the consistency. Okay, so you really want to make a sauce that's not too runny and not too thin. Now for the most important bit where most people go wrong. I've added the juice of half a lemon. And I had a good sized lemon, so add a bit more if you have to. If you don't add enough lemon, the sauce will be like dull and bland. It's really got to zing, and you can only know that by tasting it. So have a little taste and see if it needs any more lemon, salt, or even maybe some chickpea water to loosen it if the texture's too thick. So the sauce and the bread is ready. Now let's brown some butter. Here I have a few tablespoons of lightly salted butter. You can also use plain butter as well. And the trick to browning butter is to basically heat it on very low heat, like the smallest hob on the lowest heat. And you've got to watch it. If you take your eyes off butter, it will burn. It will come and get you, I swear. I've done this a couple of times. When it starts to froth and foam and develop like a deep amber color, that's when you know it's ready. Make sure it doesn't flow over the edge, and just turn it off as soon as you see that dark color forming. When you have all the elements ready, this is actually when you call everyone to the table, because Fatteh cannot be soggy. It's not delicious like that. So first I'm going to add the sauce to the bread. You don't have to cover it all, but just enough. Let's sprinkle on the pine nuts, a little handful that I've toasted actually earlier, and finally a little drizzle of the brown butter. I do love that sizzling sound at the end. So this is the basic Fattet hummus recipe, and you can actually upgrade this if you want to add some aubergine or eggplant. You can also add some minced meat. As always, the full recipe is on my blog, zaatarandzaytoun.com. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and see you next time.